Hey there, traveler. Well, I assume you're a traveler. It's kind of hard to tell since you always phase in and out all the time, but welcome. Uh, I imagine that you're probably stuck here, same as me, on this rock. Not really sure where we are, but hey, we'll get through it. It is getting pretty late now, though. So, why don't you get some rest? Oh, you, you're, you having some trouble sleeping? Well, maybe I can help with that. I have a list of stories from my world that might help you doze off to sleep a little bit. But, that's if you want the, if you want to let near, perhaps. You always wonder why people hang around campfires, but they're warm. They provide a hearth for people. In our world, such items are temporary. Similar to the flame inside the soul, they burn brightly and then they flicker away. But just because something is temporary doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. Heck, the things that do last forever tend to be not the best things in the world, so I've heard. Um, but even then, those things that seem to last forever don't really last forever. Everything has a time limit. And within that time limit is us. Our souls are filled with that flame. At least in my world, they are. I don't know what things are like in your world specifically, but in my world, where we traveled, we had vessels of sand that carried a flame of a soul. So our bodies were made of this silicate, essentially. And inside us was this flame. And for us, that was our time limit. As we grow in age, that flame burns within the body of sand. And from there, this body slowly turns to glass, exposing the soul and the aspirations of the one inside. The more that you grew, the more pure and straightforward your journey became, I suppose. Now, that is just my world's interpretation of such a theory. I imagine that your world probably has I've heard a more scientific theory as to who or what constitutes a living being. But at least for our world, that is what we go off of. It is for this reason that we consider the hearth, the flame, of such great importance. Now, if you're having trouble sleeping, I imagine you actually want to hear a story, perhaps. Let me try to conjure one up for you. So, get comfortable. Maybe just lay down on the log that you're on but just a little bit sideways, you know. Get comfortable. Now, within our world, we refer to you humans as this multi-faced god. Despite my appearances, I'm not really human, if you will. But we look up to those who are our creators. Those who... how do I say this? Imagined us, those who dreamed of us, and those who put their thoughts down on paper and made us reality. We refer to those humans as our gods, perhaps. But being a multi-faced god is something that does not come with its ease, I suppose. There are benefits to being a fully fleshed out human. Your story isn't driven by a character arc. You aren't limited to a simple fate or destiny. There is no beginning and end of a story that may be poetic or unpoetic, ironic or simply straightforward. There is nothing that is predestined for you. For us, we live in a world of myths and legends, where such things are common. The Oracle, the goddess of the flame herself, often provides divinations for us, a sight into the future of where we are meant to go, and the souls that burn within us. Those often guide us on the path towards one thing. But you humans are not the same in that regard. You complex. As I said with the multi-faced god idea. For us, we only have one face. Yeah, with a human face, you often put on one expression. Yeah, you can switch to another so quickly. Unlike us, who are often defined by our traits, and who are often limited to that idea. You have many personalities, you have many identities, and that makes it all the more difficult to comprehend, you guys. But it does not stop us from trying. I met a fox once in my world. Well, fox girl, I suppose. Imagine short, perhaps, white fur, white hair, little tips of blue on her ears, and a blue eye and a yellow eye. Someone who would seem rather simple, innocent, but whose story dives into so much deeper length. With you humans, it is much more predictable to determine one's age, I suppose. But in my world, where we have so many myths and legends, determining one's age is rather hard, honestly. The fox that I speak of, despite her size, has been around since the creation of our world. The fox goddess of technology. Though she went by many names, in the modern times that I live in, she goes by the name of Proteus. Proteus, the fox goddess of technology. Now, Proteus's current state is most align with what you could perhaps call an android. Someone who looks to be organic and human, but underneath is robotic, ruled by algorithms, and controlled by such. Though our world has more, I suppose, advanced levels of this technology, it the line still blurs between what it's like to be alive, to have a soul, and to be human, and what it is to be a luteum, an android, essentially. That line blurs quite readily. So this Fox goddess, the goddess of technology, the one who led all the advancements of the world, she often sought modernity to go forward without looking back. Because looking back is, I suppose, you would know this better than I, painful. There are good times, yes, but there are also bad times. People that you've lost, people that you've met, but can no longer see again. But it is difficult to build off of something that you do not know. One does not simply conjure up ideas and advancements from the middle of nowhere. The world does not move on, having deleted the day of the past. There is much that the world builds on. So despite the idea of forever forwardness, we cannot go on without looking back at who we were, no matter how terrifying it might be. Understanding who we were and recognizing who we are, that reflection is something that we often take for granted, that we don't often understand well enough. While I will not bore you with the details of thousands of years of history of my world, I do want to come to a point, perhaps, about what it is to be human. For, although we call ourselves human, the goddesses with their memories are perhaps the most human of us all. So we look up to them, obviously. They're the closest to our creators. They're closest to you. The goddess, the fox goddess, as it turned out, had human life before her time as an android. The idea of being human is something that she chased throughout her lifetime, ever since a transition point in her story, I suppose. When she realized that there were children that she had, lovers that she had, family and friends that she had lived with and long lost due to time, she set her sights on pursuing it. It is a painful memory, perhaps. A memory that one does not always like to unearth, that feeling of loss. Yet, despite it all, she still pursued it. Perhaps the saying is, it is better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. Perhaps that same saying applies to being human. You humans are complex. It is difficult to say just truly what you are with all the faces that you have. The fox goddess Proteus could only ever manage 9. Me, even fewer. But you humans have an infinite number across your civilization, across your society. You have faces of joy, you have faces of sadness, you have so many expressions that it is difficult to comprehend. The face that you take on one year may be different the next, and the memories that you make can alter within your mind. The memories that you make are not the same as you remember them 3 years, 5 years from when you had them in the present. And that baffles me. The human condition, I suppose, is something that one of the angels, Michelangelo, I've talked with. Not the Michelangelo that you know of, perhaps, but we refer to him as Michelangelo. We talk a lot about the human condition, he and I. We struggled with the concept. Even he, who was fully human, didn't fully understand what it meant to be human. And that is difficult, perhaps. Perhaps I should simply embrace the simplicity of my life, yet here I am pondering the life of our creators. I wonder what the stars are above the world sometimes. I wonder what the people of your past thought about those stars. I wonder our reason for existing. I wonder the reason for our pain, why we feel so many things, why you are so complicated, why you have so many expressions, so many faces, so many flaws, yet so many traits that mark you out from us. You have a level of complexity that is unrivaled towards anything that I've ever seen. I suppose it isn't easy being human. I mean, we all have our breaking points, even us. I know that as our creators, you like to depict us as gods or demigods, characters who are so strong and tough that they cannot be broken. You create us for that reason, to stand up and rise beyond all, to provide a shield for perhaps the realities that you face. But even we are not invulnerable. Even we have our flaws, whether you recognize it or not. When you pick up a book, you pick up a story that we exist in. We may simply exist in that story, but within that world, we have sides of us that even you cannot see. The world simply does not end when you close the book, or when you imagine such a world. We exist. Such concepts are deep, obviously, and have been the debate of philosophers for many years, both your world and mine. Obviously, my world has taken a much different side of things, but perhaps our worlds are not so different after all. Though we tell the same stories, we tell them differently in a parallel fashion. Yet in some way that is still relatable. I read about the figures of your history, similar as how you read the stories of our worlds. And there are twists and turns at every page, at every section of the articles. Never is it easy to explore the human condition. It truly is a baffling thing. Many people have their own definitions of what it means to be human, their own ideas about the human condition. For me personally, it is, from what I can grasp of it, the understanding of being human, having a shared relationship that connects all, whether it's us characters or you humans, and bundling it all together. And despite every single person's difference, they still share parallels of their experience. They still have different lenses. So different lenses from which they perceive things, yet they still perceive the same things. We all have childhoods, for example, yet despite your experience being different from mine, that lens being different, there are some things that we experience in our childhoods that teach us the same lessons. Now, that's not to say that all humans are the same, but that is to say that we all share something in common in that experience. We all share times of jubilation, times of true happiness and joy, but we also share our same struggles. Even if we may not understand each other, the fact that we do struggle, and that we do deal with these problems, that we cope with them, that we are able to overcome them, is one of the factors that makes us human. Us characters, even the minor characters, perhaps sometimes, are limited in that regard. We are up to the will of you creators. Perhaps we may be tossed aside, never to overcome that struggle on that page. Or perhaps if we're lucky, the main character, we have a hero's arc where we grasp and understand that. But even then, again, we exist beyond the pages, beyond the media that you create. It is, again, not so simple. But to consider that we do share things together, even across worldly boundaries at this point, is indicative of at least something. You are creators, yet you did not spawn your stories of us out of thin air. You looked at the past. You looked at your inspirations to create us. You have a human library in your brain that allows you to learn from others, to share stories with one another. And in that library, you take out books to tell others, and others tell you stories about their own experiences. Those experiences and memories get added to that human library. And the next time you tell a story, or perhaps are looking for a book to help you overcome the struggles that you're going through, you are able to find that book, that story, that experience, and overcome it. Now, that doesn't mean it'll be easy, of course, but given the things that you write about for us, perhaps with our stories, our worlds, where we fight wars, where we battle it out for freedom and prosperity of all. Or perhaps we exist in some more complexity. Perhaps if we can do such things, perhaps you can as well. Perhaps maybe not to our level, of course. I dread the day that you, our creators, would have to go through such struggles, tribulations. But the fact that you're right about us, that you depict us in such ways as heroes, suggests that you yourself hold that experience. You have a story to tell. You have read us stories of heroes, villains, people who are just trying to live out their lives. And you look up to us in some ways. So I do not doubt that you yourself can get through whatever you're going through right now. Now, of course, this is difficult to tell because you're constantly phasing in and out of this reality. Honestly, it's ever since I got stuck on this island, it's been kind of weird with many things happening. But the times that you are here, the times that you are here, that I can tell you these stories to pass on my world to yours, is perhaps one of the more joyous times to exchange the human libraries, to say that we exist, to say many things. I do not imagine that it is simple being you. Yet, whenever I look up to you, I envy you in some way. To have a life full ahead of you, full of opportunity, full of unpredictability, yet full of adventure, not bound by fate, not bound by a creator's idea of plot. I truly do envy the freedom that you have. Yet, with that freedom, with that unpredictability, comes chaos. And the Fox Goddess learned that quickly, trying to grasp at something that is no longer there. That love, that experience, is difficult. But us as characters, even we who are limited, can grow. In the worlds that you create for us, again, we continue to grow, even when you do not read or write the pages. The fact that we are in your thoughts, at the very least, already means that we exist. And from your thoughts, from your dreams, we are added to those stories of your library. Perhaps one day we will inspire you to do something greater. Perhaps one day we may be forgotten. For that ever so presence that we exist in that time frame that your memory holds us, that already means so much. I often wonder what my creator was like. Well, I've met some sort of factor of him, some sort of manner of him, I suppose. He's a bit chaotic. You may not, well, you may have some relationship of this idea in your world, but in our world, we have this idea, well, our creator, well, he calls himself our creator at least, is the Omnipotent pink tiger. I know, it's a silly name. Yet, despite the silliness, despite the chaos that he brings quite a lot of the time, he is an interesting fellow. Not someone I would have thought as a creator, obviously. But someone who, perhaps, underneath that surface, knows a bit more about what the world is, what life is than us. For us, we can live in the comfort of knowing that our reality exists at least somewhere. Perhaps in someone's memory. Perhaps in a form of a book. Perhaps in a world of some sort. And when those memories and those books are burned and forgotten, we will phase out of your world, but we will still exist in our own. But to grapple with that idea that being human is complex, simply is difficult. You are complex in that your experiences, your memories are so ephemeral. They fade in and out, in and out. You do not often remember the things that you did a week ago. Whereas for us, you can flip back 30 pages to see what we were up to. We, in that manner, are a bit more permanent, yet still ephemeral compared to you. For you, the effects that you have on your world are much more longer lasting. You have the capacity to change so much, unbound by fate. With that freedom, with that expression, you are able to do so much. Because you are human. You are able to tackle your flaws that you have, to befriend and create networks, to write and to create to a degree that we can only imagine. Barely that, perhaps. When we gaze up at the stars, you gaze up at the stars and you see stories. You see stories of the Big Dipper, of so much out there. And you create. Perhaps one day we will be able to create to a similar degree as you. But for now, we remain bound to the books, to the videos, to the experiences that we exist in as these stories. But you are human. Despite the flaws that you think you may have, despite the misgivings you believe you have in your own world, I truly do envy you at some points. Most points, perhaps. To have so many faces, to have that freedom, to have that complexity, to exist, to be able to create, to be able to learn from one's mistakes, to break character traits that we're limited to never be defined by a single definition, by a single term, to be able to be so much more than description, and having true potential to do all the things that you need out there. Us characters, well, we'll get there one day. Do not worry about us. Similar as to how you look up to us in the stories that you create for us as gods, demigods, heroes, taking on that laborious journey. We also look up to you, beings that have infinite possibility, infinite capabilities, true unlimited lifespan, similar to us, yet are also immortal in some fashion, or changes that you make in your world will surely go on to affect everything down the road. You may not imagine that such things will happen yet. Perhaps you are not at a stage of your life where you believe you are changing the world. But you will. Your existence in itself already proves that. The fact that you can create us to bring us to reality, to tell our stories, to write about us, already says so much about you. It is not easy being human, obviously. I am still coming to terms with that myself, having gained some level of sentience, some level of autonomy out of my creator's hands. But it's not a bad thing, I suppose. But I'm still stuck on the island, so that's, I'm working on it. But being human, I suppose, now that I am, being able to ground, to learn what my faces are, to see that I'm not limited to simply words on a page, means so much. I know that some of you take your existence for granted, that it may be easier just to toss everything away. But you are so gifted in a fashion that we can only dream of. Or what it'll be like to get off this island, honestly. I've heard that there was another world out there, but closer to your human world perhaps, but still not there. But that world that exists, it both terrifies me and it also, how do I say this, excites me. The fact that infinite possibilities exist, that you can do the things that you set out to be, that you're not limited to a set path that your creator says you are to be. That is exciting, is it not? You have a path ahead of you, you have a long journey ahead of you. So it might be a good idea for you to get some rest. I'll still be here, of course. Well, you can come visit me anytime. I imagine that you humans have some sort of time reversal technique or something that you can use. But perhaps if you hold us in your memories, if you know that we exist and that you yourself exist, that is a start on this journey. If only it were so easy to be human, I suppose. But to be human means that you're so gifted with what you can do in this world of yours. So take not the things that you consider for granted. Take not for granted the faces that you have, the people that you are, the multi-sided dimensions that compose your existence. Because you have so much potential. And though you may fear that unpredictability, that chaos, the obstacles that lay ahead of you, sit down for a moment. Find the stories in your library. Find those stories where others have met you, where they shared their struggles, their ways to get over, to understand, and fight their obstacles to later overcome them. Understand those things, strengthen your resolve, and forge ahead to continue writing your own story. It will not be easy, of course. You do not have a creator yourselves. Well, that at least I know of. You don't have a creator yourselves that leads on that story, that has given you a fate that you can comfortably follow now. And even those fates may not always be true if one does not hold their aspirations high enough. But the fact that you have uncertainty, the fact that you have change, you're so much brighter than you consider yourself to be. Your fire burns thousands of times brighter than us characters. You have stories of your own to tell. You have stories of your own to create. You have a long journey ahead of you. It may not look like it now, but you'll get there. It'll take time, of course. It's not like with us characters, you can just simply put a time skip or maybe a fast forward. But where it's so easy, perhaps that journey is worth taking, at the very least. It is getting late for me as well. You're a traveler. And I see that your body is starting to fade from this reality as well. But take heed, creator. For you have so much that you can do, so much that lies ahead of you, so much for you to see, so much of the world to see, so much of a reality that extends beyond. It crosses so many others, it crosses so many lives, so many experiences. To be human truly means to be well, something else, I suppose. And the answer may not come in our lifetimes, but it is at least calming to understand that you are not alone. That the human condition, the human experiences are shared amidst all. Among all. And among us as well. Take some rest, Creator. Take some rest. Over the stars for you. Do not worry, they will not be going anywhere. Night sky, sun that rises at dawn. Temporary and permanent. Forever there, yet only for a flicker of a bit. Lives that exist that have so much change and then flicker out, similar to the hearth that lays before us. We're only so easy to understand its existence. Yet, perhaps it is simplest to just acknowledge it. You'll get there. Take some rest. Take some rest. Farewell.